You bring home a fat nursery hydrangea in a plastic pot, blue blooms bobbing like little clouds. You dig the hole right, you water it, you wait. Next spring, it leaves out green, new stems come, nothing looks dead, but the flowers never arrive. That is what I call a silent bloom killer. It does not always kill the plant, it just steals the buds before you ever see them. And one plain little assumption may be costing you a whole season. And the first thing to understand is that hydrangeas usually are not being dramatic. They are being specific. I am old Amos, and after 50 years watching folks fuss over hydrangeas, I can tell you this. Most bloom failures do not come from neglect. They come from loving the plant in the wrong direction. By the end of this, you will be able to look at your shrub and narrow the trouble down to one of 7 places: light, planting depth, water, pruning, feeding, mulch, or simple patience. Hydrangeas are sturdy old shrubs. They are not porcelain, but they do have a few lines you cannot cross. Cut the wrong stems, bury the crown, dry the roots, or push leaves with too much food, and the plant may stay green while the flowers vanish. The first silent killer usually begins before the plant ever has a chance to settle in. The wrong kind of sunshine. Harsh afternoon sun is not the same as useful light. Most hydrangeas bloom best where they get bright morning sun, then some mercy when the day turns hot. That early light feeds the plant. The late heat punishes it. You will see the clues. Leaves curl at the edges, soil dries out by supper, flowers brown too fast, or buds stall before they ever open. The shrub may still look alive, and that is what fools people. Hydrangeas carry big, thirsty leaves. In hard heat, those leaves lose water faster than the roots can replace it, so the plant changes priorities. It stops thinking about flowers and starts trying to survive. Deep shade causes a different trouble. You get soft green growth, long stems, and weak blooming. If your spot bakes after lunch, give it afternoon shade. Move it while dormant, or choose a tougher panicle hydrangea for that hotter ground. But even in perfect light, a hydrangea can struggle if it was buried just a little too deep. A hydrangea can be planted too deep and still look perfectly respectable for a while. That is the cruel part. The crown is the little meeting place where roots become stems. It should sit level with the soil around it, or just a finger's width above. Bury it under a heavy blanket of dirt, and you trap dampness right where the plant needs air. Then the trouble starts quietly. The base stays wet, oxygen thins out, fine roots slow down. In bad soil, rot begins before the top of the plant ever gives you a clear warning. Old gardeners learn to look at that line first. Not the leaves, not the flowers, the neck of the plant. If yours is buried, pull soil gently away from the stems. Do not dig a deeper hole to fix soggy ground. Lift the root ball if needed, and improve drainage with compost. And once the crown is sitting right, the next question is whether the water is reaching the roots that matter. That is where many good gardeners get fooled. They water every morning, a little spray over the leaves, a shine on the mulch. The soil looks dark for an hour and everybody feels better. But hydrangeas do not need a sip, they need a drink. Shallow watering keeps the roots close to the surface, right in the hottest, driest layer of soil. By afternoon, that thin, wet skin is gone. Then the plant wilts, the stems soften, and the flower buds sit there tight as buttons, too stressed to open properly. Deep watering does the opposite. It pulls the roots downward into cooler ground where moisture holds steady when the sun turns mean. So test before you water. Push your finger a few inches into the soil. If it is dry down there, water slowly and deeply once or twice a week, depending on heat and soil. Not constantly soggy, just evenly moist. But water can only protect the buds you still have, and many gardeners cut those buds off without realizing it. Here's the quiet thief: a pair of clean pruners in fall or early spring when those brown stems look dead and untidy. On big leaf and oak leaf hydrangeas, those old stems may be carrying next season's flowers. The buds are already set, tucked along last year's wood, waiting through winter like little green promises. Cut them down then, and the plant can still leaf out beautifully. Full, healthy, green as a pasture, but no blooms. That is why type matters. Old wood hydrangeas bloom from stems they grew last year. New wood hydrangeas, like many panicle and smooth types, make flowers on fresh spring growth, so they can be pruned in late winter or early spring. If you do not know which one you have, do less. Remove dead, damaged, or crossing stems. Save the shaping for right after flowering. Even if the buds survive your pruners, the wrong feeding can convince the plant to grow leaves instead of flowers. A hydrangea can be overfed and still look like the picture of health. Big leaves, thick stems, deep green color, and not a flower head in sight. That is the trick with nitrogen. It does not make a plant bloom just because it makes a plant grow. Nitrogen feeds leaves and stems first. So if you keep pouring on high nitrogen fertilizer or let lawn fertilizer drift into the bed, the hydrangea may put its strength into foliage instead of setting flowers. Then there is timing. Feed too late in the season, and you can push soft new growth when the plant ought to be hardening off for winter. That tender growth is easier for cold to damage, and on the wrong hydrangea, damaged stems can mean lost buds. If the plant needs feeding, use a balanced, slow-release fertilizer in spring. Then stop by late summer. Better yet, test the soil before adding anything blind. And while fertilizer gets the attention, one of the cheapest bloom helpers is often sitting in a bag by the shed. Mulch looks too simple to matter, but for a hydrangea, that quiet blanket can be the difference between roots that stay steady and roots that spend summer fighting for their life. Bare soil heats fast, it dries fast. Weeds move in, and every hot afternoon pulls moisture away from those shallow roots. A stressed hydrangea may stay green enough to fool you, but it has less strength left for buds. Now here's where folks go wrong the other way. They pile mulch up around the stems like a little mountain. Old Amos would call that tucking the plant in too tight. That damp mound traps moisture against the crown, cuts down air, and can invite rot right where the plant needs to breathe. Give it 2 to 3 inches of organic mulch, bark, compost, pine needles, shredded leaves. Spread it out toward the drip line, then leave a small open ring around the stems. But after all those fixes, there is one last mistake that has caused more unnecessary digging than almost anything else. The last mistake is deciding too soon that the plant has failed. A new hydrangea can sit there its first year with leaves, stems, and hardly a flower in sight. That does not mean it is broken. It may be doing the quiet work underground, building roots instead of showing off on top. After a hard winter, the same thing can happen. Big leaf and other old wood bloomers may lose flower buds to cold, even while the stems leaf out later. So the plant looks alive, but the bloom for that season was already taken. Then folks panic. They move it, prune it, feed it hard, water it every day. Old Amos would say they keep shaking the cradle and wondering why the baby will not sleep. Fix the obvious trouble, then give it one full growing season. Protect tender types in cold zones. Watch before you act. Taken together, these mistakes point to a bigger truth. The villain is not neglect, it is guessing. That is the pattern hiding under every bare hydrangea. Too much water drowns the roots, too much pruning removes the buds, too much fertilizer grows leaves instead of flowers, too much moving breaks the plant's rhythm before it settles. Different mistake, same damage. The plant cannot send energy where bloom begins. Old Amos would tell you to look first, understand second, and only then put your hands on the shrub. Hydrangeas forgive plenty, but not assumptions dressed up as care. So if your hydrangea is green but bloomless, here's the quick diagnosis to carry back into the garden. So the thief was likely never a curse at all. It was one quiet mistake. Harsh afternoon sun, a buried crown, shallow watering, the wrong pruning cut, too much nitrogen, mulch piled against the stems, or plain impatience with a young shrub still finding its roots. Set the plant where morning light can wake it and afternoon shade can spare it. Keep the crown level with the soil. Water deeply, prune only after you know whether it blooms on old wood or new wood. Feed lightly, not late. Mulch like a blanket, not a collar. Then give it time. Old Amos would say a hydrangea blooms when you stop forcing it and start listening. If this helped, subscribe for more plant-specific guides, and tell me below what hydrangea you are growing, or what symptom has you stuck. Thank you for spending this garden minute with me.